Welcome to the scene-wise analysis of Act 3 of the play Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. As we all know, the Act 3 of the play is of utmost importance because of a series of reasons. It has almost several of the important features of a typical revenge tragedy enclosed in it. For example, we have an interlude, we have a series of soliloquies and asides spoken by the important characters, and also there is a gruesome murder, the murder of Polonius, taking place in this act. Apart from this, it also reveals the complex character of Hamlet in much more prominent manner, which discloses the existential fears and the main reasons that makes him away from his actions. Hi, welcome to the scene-wise analysis of Act 3, Scene 1 of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. As we all know, the Act 3, Scene 1 of the play is of great importance since it has a series of events that contribute to the progression of the plot. And the scene is not a small one. It is a long scene of around 190 lines. It is otherwise known as the nunnery scene. It has two important soliloquies uttered by Prince Hamlet and Ophelia in a room. Apart from that, it also has as an aside uttered by King Claudius, which reveals his guilt, and it also reveals his involvement in the murder of King Hamlet. Apart from that, the scene also reveals the characters of the royal couple and about their sense of anxiety regarding the melancholy of Hamlet. And we also find more and more conspiracies are getting hatched, and how the King Claudius and Polonius are plotting against Hamlet to know further about his brooding nature. The scene ends with the decision taken by the councillor Polonius and the King Claudius to confine Hamlet if they fail to find the real reason for his malady. The scene opens with the principal characters, the royal couple, and the two companions of Hamlet, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, along with Polonius in the court. In fact, the scene begins with Claudius expressing his anxiety regarding the result of the investigation made by the two companions of Hamlet. And can you, by no drift of conference, get from him why he puts on his confusion? These lines are clear understanding of the conflict that goes on in the mind of Claudius regarding Hamlet's antique disposition. Now we find in this scene the royal couple expressing their agony and anxiety regarding the melancholy of Hamlet. And we find Gertrude is asking about the real reason and the behavior of Hamlet during their meeting. She's anxious as a mother regarding how Hamlet behaved during their meeting, whether he cared for the friends, and she also is eager to know about the result of their meeting, whether they could understand the real reason for his melancholy. Therefore, as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern leave the scene, we find Claudius making a request to Gertrude. Sweet Gertrude, leave us too, for we have closely sent for Hamlet hither, that he, as it were by accident, may hear a friend Ophelia. As Queen Gertrude leaves the scene, she is gracious enough to compliment Ophelia for her beauty, but her statement is intensely diabolic, since she is requesting Ophelia to transform Hamlet to his normalcy through her virtuous nature. Through her statement, she is vaguely hinting at the fact that the beauty which has flared up passion in Prince Hamlet can be doused by her virtuous nature. Meanwhile, Polonius gives certain shrewd instructions to Ophelia to make her stand in the corridor as she waits for Hamlet to make the meeting happening as though by chance. She asks her to don an appearance as though she was reading a book and to have an appearance of devotion and piety on her face. Polonius' instructions are triggering an aside which springs from the moral compunctions in Claudius for the first time, and he is spilling some beans that reveals his guilt and his involvement in the murder of King Hamlet for the first time. The aside for the first time reveals a sense of desperation and the feeling of guilt that is borne by King Claudius ever since he had murdered his brother, King Hamlet. And he is uttering the word, "my great burden," which is a clear revelation of a sense of guilt. Here we have the king, Claudius, and Polonius hiding behind the arras with the ulterior motive of overhearing the conversation between Hamlet and Ophelia in order to know the real reason for Hamlet's melancholic mood. As the conspirators wait for their bait, they see Hamlet walking towards them, reading a book and uttering the most important soliloquy of the play, which discusses the very nature of human existence and its complexities, which is otherwise known as "to be or not to be" soliloquy. The soliloquy is of utmost dramatic value, and it also unlocks the character and the mind of Hamlet to a great extent, since it comes directly after the famous Hecuba soliloquy, where he is seen as very much resolute and ready for action. But in "to be or not to be" soliloquy, we find Hamlet is literally gauging and measuring the pros and cons of his own actions. Here we find Hamlet is questioning about how he should act and how he should react to the problems in his life. The conflict whether to become an active hero or a passive hero. Whether to be active and fight against the slings and arrows of his life, or to suffer the sufferings of life in the most passive manner. Hamlet has a very reason to think in this manner, since he is concerned about the results of his action, since he does not know what awaits a man after his death. So the soliloquy therefore reveals the intellectual side of Hamlet and how much he is concerned about the existential matters of man, which are unknown to him, and he is worried about the aftermath of his action. And he reveals he would have committed suicide had he knew what waited him after his death. So the very reason why he does not act or react or commit suicide is because he does not know what awaits him after his death. He does not know what he can expect after his death. And he clearly describes about the reason why he is inactive, the reason why he is so irresolute. It is because he is more concerned about the consequences of his actions, and he is worried about the eternal damnation and the last judgment that is inevitable for all mankind. The soliloquy has great importance since it reveals the vulnerable and the weak side of this great hero who is unable to find a way out from his jinx. The soliloquy is of utmost importance as the vulnerable and the solitary life of Hamlet in his own palace is revealed. Here we find the young prince who has understood the fact that he is disowned by his own mother and recently rejected by Ophelia as she just returned the unopened letters and remembrances to Hamlet. So the broken mind of Hamlet is actually what we come across through this soliloquy.